Welcome, Whitney, to Wealth Matters podcast. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Pleasure to be here.
Where are you based out of?
I'm in Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. Nice. How's the weather?
It's actually really nice. It's really
That,
nice. Not too
that's good.
hot. We've had some great weather. Where are you based out of?
San Francisco.
Okay, I couldn't
Yeah, the
remember.
other part of the world.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about your great weather.
Oh no,
It's
yeah.
better than mine.
It's weather is way too expensive. So we pay for it, right? So can you tell my listeners what do you do?
I can. That could be a really long subject, but now the short is a real estate syndicator or deal sponsor. Most people in that industry know what that means, but just in case you don't, we're buying large apartment communities. We're buying buildings that have some type of value add component, meaning they're
Mhm.
mismanaged, they're under market rents, something like that, where we can come in and increase the income to increase the value. And obviously, we do that through having investors that partner with us and they invest and to buy those buildings. And so, they all get to reap the reward, of operating the building well and raising the income, increasing the value, and then eventually selling, to do it again many times. So that's it's the long and short of the real estate syndication business or model that we have.
Right,
It's called LifeBridge Capital, and that's who we are. Well, and that's not really our why, but that's how we get there.
right. So, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur or business owner? Your why?
Yeah. So our I guess our why is not really why we first got into real estate, but back I guess 2009, I was working for Kentucky State police officer, and
Oh, really?
it yeah, I was working for Kentucky State Police, and I really enjoyed that. I had just come back from Iraq and spent a year there, and I was in the military, and that was just something I enjoyed the structure and the uniform, all that stuff, and would have almost done it for free when I first got hired. Um, however, you get married, things change.
Right.
And it just kind of hit me that this is it's just not very family friendly. I was having
No.
to work every night, weekend, and holiday, and it just no room for advancement or to make any more money. And it just finally hit me that okay, I need to figure out some other way to increase my income. And then in came real estate, and so we got into some smaller multifamily pretty quickly, and I didn't know about the syndication model till really just a few years ago. But I'd owned different small multifamily along the way and different things, but didn't know about the just the business of syndication and what that can look like. But once I learned about that, I knew that was the way I wanted to go. But our big why to answer that question is to help fund children's adoptions. And to be able to adopt a child, most people have no idea that it could be $40,000 to $60,000, and
Wow.
yes, it is. Wow. I mean, it's frustrating. I mean,
That's
that is
crazy, right? Yeah,
it
we are
is
trying to
crazy.
help here.
I agree, and it is. My wife and I are in the process of our third adoption right now, and it has
That is
been
awesome.
such a roller coaster. It's so
That is,
difficult on the adoptive families, and the expense is so great. It's just not supported well, but all that to say, we want to be able to help families that are looking to adopt a child. We want them to commit, and I hear it all the time.
right.
People say, well, Whitney, that's more than I'm making a year.
Right.
How can I do that? And honestly, a lot of that money's at risk, that it could fall
Right.
through and then you lose it. And so
That's true.
people won't commit. And so we've committed half of our profits, 50% of our profits, to helping these families and helping them through the process, but also helping them financially. And so, or if a listener is looking to adopt a child and you haven't got started, we would love to talk to you. Feel free to reach out, and my wife and I will schedule a call with you and your spouse, and just answer questions from our experience. But that's our big why, and that's
That's
why we
awesome.
are pursuing the just growing our real estate business.
I appreciate what you and your wife are doing, and good luck with all of this. I know, it's amazing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. We're honored to be a part of it, and our family has just been blessed many times now through adoption.
Hey, so let's jump on to the real topic of this podcast. You and I were chatting about virtual assistant, and it hit me that, oh, I should talk about this on the podcast or I should interview you. So, what is a virtual assistant or VA? We will refer to virtual assistant as VA during this entire podcast. So, can you give us an idea?
Yeah, so virtual just pretty much means what it sounds. I mean, they're or sounds like they're your assistant, but they're virtual. They're not in your office. They're not probably in the same city. They could be, or they're not coming to us office. Like at your office location. You're working all through the computer. You're working with them through the phone or through email and through different platforms online. So they're not with you. They could be anywhere in the world.
So, why should someone use a VA?
So that's a good question, and I get it often. And if you have tasks that do not specifically require your attention, and then you should be trying to hire some of those out. And I say that because if you're growing a business, you're an entrepreneur, you need to be able to focus on maybe it's $100 an hour tasks now, but pretty soon it's going to be, $1,000 an hour tasks,
Right.
and even more so. So you need to be able to focus on those tasks and even do more of those tasks, or maybe you want to, you work less hours. Either way, there's numerous reasons, but tasks that you do throughout the day that are just maybe there's something that has to be done every day and it's just repetitive and it's thankless kind of tasks. You could hire all of those out, most of them anyway, very cheap, very inexpensively, and it allows you to spend that time somewhere else, whether it's work or play. It's your
Right.
choice, but you get to spend that time and make that time much more valuable. And what you will find is that as soon as just if you think, oh, Whitney, I don't need a VA, I'm managing. Well, just think about it throughout the day. Okay, tomorrow, as soon as you start your day, just start thinking, continually thinking about everything you're doing, and if you really have to be the one doing it. And pretty soon, I mean, you'll start creating a list of things,
Uh-huh.
and pretty soon, you'll know some things that, hey, I could use an assistant. I could get somebody else to do a few of these things, and so. I mean, it just helps you then to focus more on the business and be able to, to work on more important things.
So, when did you realize that you would have to hire a VA? Or how did you realize?
Yeah. So, pretty much when I've used a VA for a number of years now for different tasks. Some early on or a few years ago were more like some accounting things or bookkeeping or I did not use them to their full extent at that time. I had no idea, everything that I could use them for that I do now. And so I used them on and off then. And then when I started a daily podcast, I knew right from the beginning, okay, there's no way, it's not possible for me to get all this stuff done. It's just,
Right.
It's not going to happen. And so I went into that knowing that I was going to have to build my own team of assistants, of virtual assistants. And so that's what I did. And, and we can get into what that looked like a little bit, but that was pretty much it. Like I knew I was not going to have the time to get all those tasks done, but I wanted to accomplish this and I wanted to do it well. And so I had to hire a team, build a team.
Right. So, can you give us an example of the tasks you can assign to VA, or what kind of tasks do you assign to your VA?
So that process has changed quite a bit for me. So for a long time, I managed about 5 different VAs, 4 to 5, and they were doing something. Every one of them were doing something different just for the podcast.
Just for the podcast.
Just for the podcast. And so each one of them were doing something different. There's numerous tasks, obviously, as you know, for a podcast that, we can hire out. And the good thing about a VA is that you can find people that have specific skills. And maybe they're not somebody that you would hire as like an executive assistant that would be like your right-hand go-to person. However, they may have one skill. Maybe it's Excel. Maybe it's PowerPoint. Maybe it's editing videos, whatever it may be. They could be really good at that specific skill, and you hire them just for that. And so it's so useful because you don't have to hire a full-time employee. You're not having to hire this person
Right.
for 40 hours a week. And, you're hiring them because they're really good at Excel, but what are they doing the rest of the time? You're
Yep.
having to train them for all these other things or keep them employed, finding stuff, for them to do. But the cool part about a VA is you can hire them per the job even. You could hire them for a specific task. And then once that task is done, you don't have to use them anymore. Or maybe you pay them per task, once a week or whenever that happens.
Right.
Or you use them for numerous things, or even have like a full-time executive assistant that's a VA. It could go either way. And I'm happy to give you examples or whatever you want.
So, no, I think that was very helpful. What qualities do you look for in NVA? Do you go with a freelancer or a company providing VA services?
So, the qualities are going to depend on why you need the VA. And that's something you have to determine. You need to determine early on. So why do I need this VA? Is it for, data entry, just massive amounts of, okay, look at this website and find this stuff and put it on this sheet. That doesn't take many skills,
Nope.
to do that, right? I mean,
Right.
most people can do that. And so, if that's the case, then, you can find assistants from all over the world for $5 an hour, or sometimes even less, and get a quality job done if it's just like data entry or something like that. Or if you need something that's like, you need some very high-end coding done on your website, or even legal work, something that's very technical, you can get it done by a VA, but obviously you're going to pay more for those things.
Yeah, and you will have to find an expert.
That's right. That's right. But it's going to be in your job description, and you're going to lay out exactly what you need, and so I've used Upwork more than anything else. I've used the VA agency before and, wasn't really thrilled with this specific agency, but I like Upwork for numerous reasons. And that's where I have found, the most success with my VA.
Yeah, I use Upwork as well most of the time. So when you mentioned about the agencies, why would you choose as a freelancer over VA agency?
So,
because I thought it would be the other way around, where I can have backup resources, right? Let's say that my VA gets sick or is not able to finish the task, there is an emergency or something, then I have someone backing him or her up if I went with an agency.
good question. And it's a double-edged sword almost, because
Exactly.
the agency, they depending on who it is, there are some really good ones. And I mean, I did lots of research about different agencies. If somebody wants to call me, I'm happy to share that with you. But there's some that are really good, and most agencies are going to be able to vet someone and do a more quality interview process than you are just hiring somebody random. So in a lot of VA companies, they're going to understand what your jobs are that you're needing done, or your tasks, and they're going to know what VAs that they have that are going to be best for that task. And I would say most of the time, or that's the idea behind it. I was not thrilled with the agency that I had, and like you said, well, if somebody gets sick, they can have somebody else. That's something some of them promote. That if this person goes on vacation, we've got other people here that can do that task as well. And that may be okay if you have for data entry or for some specific tasks. But I really like working with the same person, building that relationship. They get better and better and better. They understand me better. They know what I'm looking for. And the last thing I want to do is have to go train somebody else every 2 weeks.
Well, that's a great point too, right? Because you'll be spending your time and energy on this one person, and want to make sure that they can translate your thoughts, right?
Right.
That's pretty cool. So you gave us an idea, but can you give us an idea again on the cost of hiring a VA? You said $5 an hour. So, but again, it would depend on the expertise you are looking for.
It does. And the really neat thing though is that you can decide that kind of up front. Well, what does your budget allow? And then like specific website is Upwork. When you go in there, you can put the amount that you're willing to pay for this task, or you can say I'm going to pay this much per task or this much per hour, and you can set that up front. And so, if it was $5 an hour for some tasks, it depends on who you hire, right, and where they're at, and many things. But if I want a quality executive assistant, I've got a lady working for me now she's just amazing. She does really well. She does lots of things for me. She's nearly full time. And so obviously I pay her quite a bit more than that, but she is, she's a lot more than just a data entry VA. She is doing lots of things for me and managing lots of important things. And so I'm willing to pay her a little more. I want her to stay as well. So that's something else. A lot of freelancers, if they're working for an agency, a lot of times they're working for that agency because they don't have the experience yet, or one way or another. Maybe they're working on Upwork because they don't have experience yet. Some people want to work for an agency, and some people at an agency want to work for themselves. Most of them want to get their own clients, and they work for an agency, long enough to get some experience.
Right.
That's right.
And
That's
then they will jump ship, right? Or
That's right.
They'll get better pay at another agency. You never know.
That's exactly right. After they get some experience, another agency that's more quality that will pay them more may hire them. And so, like my assistant, I want to pay her well. We're very open about that. I want to grow her pay. I want it to increase. And because she is learning me all the time, whether it's for the podcast or for the real estate business, working with investors, she's helping, if she's communicating with investors, like I want to know that she is top notch. She is quality. She is somebody I want to stick around. I want her to be on top of her game and not somebody that's just halfway in this. It's very, very important. I wouldn't give her a task like that if I felt like she wasn't going to be here long term or cared about the business.
Makes sense. So, are most of your VAs based out of country, or do you also use United States-based VAs?
So when I went through the agency, I hired a young lady that was in the States. She was actually in Virginia as well.
Oh, okay.
And that just worked out. We didn't plan that, but she was really good. And if it hadn't been for her, I would not have stayed with that agency as long as I did.
Oh, wow.
But she was really good. I wanted to keep her on, and so like her, she worked for me a while, and then she could own. So that's another thing about an agency. A lot of times they're going to have, they may have 5, 6, 8 clients that they're working for at the same time. So if you hire a VA, and this is a problem that I ran into. Well, when I first started with her, I wasn't, I didn't want to give her every task all at once. So I only hired her for 2 hours a day. So then the VA company filled up the rest of her time for every day. And so as I got to know her, I wanted her to stick with me, and I wanted to give her more work. But guess what? She's out of time. She couldn't give me any more time, and it was a problem. Like I'm needing her to do more things. I want her to keep working for me, but she can't. She doesn't have the time.
Right.
And so, and then she ended up getting a totally different job outside of freelancing or, being a VA that she was really passionate about. And so obviously I supported her in that, but it was good altogether because I needed to move. She didn't have the time to give me anyway. And so, but she was in the States, to answer your question, while all the rest of them were in other countries and all over the world.
So, and the reason I asked you is how do you manage the time zone? And that because I work from IT industry, I come from IT, right? And I have worked throughout, pretty much with people in India, resources in Europe, South America, and I know the pain of working, around the clock. So how were you able to overcome that issue, the time zone issue?
Well, that's a good question. And so that depends on your tasks as well. And so thankfully, like like the lady that was in Virginia, she was like my executive assistant. She couldn't give me any more time. So she was thankfully on the same time zone. But all the rest of them were all over the world in totally different time zones. But so she helped me manage the rest of the team. But what I did, like I said, it depends on your tasks. Are they time sensitive? And if they are, you need to think about that, when you're hiring somebody. But that could work both ways. If they're in so let's say they're 12 hours ahead of you, it could be a good thing or behind, So, there's times where if somebody is 12 hours behind, I could send them a task or say, hey, I need this done. And maybe I'm sending to them at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Well, guess what? In a few hours, they're just coming to work and I'm getting off work or I'm ending for the day. The next morning when I come back to work, guess what? That task is already done and in my inbox. So that could be a really good thing, but it does make it more difficult to say have a phone call or, to really talk about things or, just it could, if there's a problem. But in my case, we were doing most of mine that were out of the country were just helping with the podcast, doing different things. And so I had a flow and I had a big Excel sheet and, where I tracked all this stuff. And so every task had a name across the top and then show numbers down the left. And I'd grouped everybody's tasks together in order. So, everybody was color coded as well. So, if you were doing a specific task or whatever task, if you had 3 or 4 tasks, they'd be color coded at the top together. So you knew exactly what I expected of you. And then, if something was broken, like I knew exactly where to go to see who hadn't done their job yet.
Right. So that was going to be my next question. How do you keep track of the tasks and manage the VA? Do you use any tool, any project management tool, or is this Excel? What do you do if you can give us an idea?
Yes. So at that time, I was just using that Excel sheet. I mean, it was on Google Drive. And so I should have said that. So it was on Google Drive. It was so that way we could all see that at the same time. Everybody updates their portion of the list. There's certain parts of it everybody knew only I edited or touched, and then everybody else had their own section, but then also my main assistant, my executive assistant could go in there and see where everybody was at in that process of production. And that's changed now. And I still use that to some extent, but my assistant that I have, so I've graduated a little bit. I've got somebody that has more skills now. She's closer to full time. And so she, like I said, she helps me with a lot more things. She's paid better, but she already came in. One of her skills was using Asana, and I had never used Asana before. So, she told me about it. I did a little research. I talked to other entrepreneurs who really loved Asana and had really good success managing VAs and numerous all kinds of things through Asana. And so I said, okay, I need to learn. She already knows it, thankfully. And so I need to jump in and learn this. And so we've been using, I still don't have the skills with Asana that I need to have, but I am learning. But it helps her and I to stay organized. It helps her to stay very organized. She's really good at it.
Yeah, I have heard of Asana, but I haven't used it.
Yeah. I think there's the free version, and most of the most everything's in there for free almost. That most people would need anyway.
Right. Oh, that's a great point. So, anything else you want to talk about in VA? How to use VA or leverage, or something I forgot.
So, with a VA, and I just encourage it again to remember that you could hire them for 1 hour a week. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything, elaborate. It doesn't have to even be very costly, but it will just help you to start thinking differently. And as soon as you start giving them a couple tasks, like it will start snowballing, and you'll start figuring out, well, oh, wow, that worked out pretty well. I could give them this over here as well. And you will start to be more productive. And those things that you've been putting off, things that I put off for a really long time, I had this list going of tasks, and pretty much now, like I just tell her these things. And I'll tell you another tool that we use to communicate as well in a minute. But, I'll tell her these things that we need to get done. And before I know it, they're getting done. And so I give her some freedom too to maybe even outsource some other things or, to get things done that we need done that I do not have the time to do. So I'm more ahead of things now, and she helps me to stay, per my calendar, keep my calendar up to date, scheduling meetings with investors or all kinds of things that she helps me do. Even if it's an update to a website or, she can help arrange all that. And I was going to tell you, one tool that we use.
Slack? Let me guess. Is it Slack?
It's not.
Oh, come on.
But I've heard really good things about Slack, and I've debated about using Slack because, I've heard it integrates with Asana. And so it may be a really good add-on for us in the very near future. And the cool thing about Slack is you can make channels and you can go back and search it. And I've heard it's really good. But like for more immediate communication, one thing that we use is Voxer. And Voxer is just a walkie-talkie app. I mean, it's that simple.
I haven't heard of that.
And so, you can send actual voice recordings through most like text messaging apps, but Voxer just is pretty easy. I mean, you just hold the button down and talk just like you're using a walkie-talkie. And so I like that in a way, I mean, in many ways, because then I don't have to, like, if I'm using voice to text, which I use a lot, then you're having to look down. Well, did it get the words right? And, sometimes they are really messed up, and so I'm not having to do that at all. But then also she can hear my voice. She can hear the tone of
Yes.
my voice. She can hear the urgency behind my voice, even if I don't say it, and
That's a great point.
yeah. So no matter where you are in the world, you can use Voxer and communicate, obviously, if they speak the same language. But it's been really useful. That and Asana have been good.
Okay, so I'm going to spell those out for the listeners. Asana, Asana, and Voxer, Voxer. So thank you for the tips and sharing those tools with us.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hey, I'm going to switch track as well. We are listening to Whitney about how to use virtual assistants. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. I'm chatting with Whitney regarding how to and why to utilize VA. Hey, Whitney, I think we covered most of the things which I wanted to. Can you tell us what's your most favorite finance or business book?
One recently that I had started and got most of the way through now is a book called The Road Less Stupid, and it's just what it says. I mean, The Road Less Stupid. It's a great book, and it's just many things that it helps you to think through. Just running a business better, and things that maybe you call problems, that shouldn't be called problems, and helping you to think through, structuring those things. And it's just really good. I highly recommend it. Keith Cunningham.
Keith Cunningham, right? Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard it, but I have heard about the book. So I got to, either put it on my Audible or Kindle. No, thank you for sharing that book. How can my listeners reach out to you?
Yes, so you're welcome to email me, Whitney at lifebridgecapital.com, or go to lifebridgecapital.com, or, listen to the podcast, or, there's numerous ways you can reach me. And you can call me as well, 540-585-4338, call or text. It'll be fine.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Whitney, for sharing your wisdom with us.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.